And just a brief overview of what we're going to go through today. First, I'll go through an introduction or a general introduction to glass in buildings, kind of from a historical standpoint through the 20th century through to where we are today. I'll go through the basics and the background of glass strength and how glass strength is determined. I'll then go through the various IBC code requirements along with an overview of the various design guidelines that are out there for design of glass in North America. And this presentation, I am going to spend some time going through both the history of glass production and current glass production in order to provide an outline of the mechanical properties of glass, because I believe that an understanding of the mechanical properties is very important to a better understanding of how to practically design glass as a structural engineer. This presentation is targeted at those in the design profession and particularly those involved in building design. And as I get started, I do need to thank the COST. It's the COST working group, which was a cooperation in science and technology group that was together in Europe for a large number of years. Much of the information in this presentation has been drawn from presentations that group put together in kind of, well, I don't want to say the early age of development of structural glass guidelines in Europe, but it was a group that did a lot to kind of further structural glass in Europe. So that project has since been closed, but many of the people that were involved in that project are still involved and engaged in structural glass development and design, working on Eurocodes, etc. I did work in the United States for many years. I do now live and work in Europe, and so I apologize if when I refer to Europe, I refer to we, but most of this presentation is focused on design in the US. So first, Glass 101, just a little bit of a background. Why are we even discussing glass as a structural material? There's been a large evolution in glass as a structural material or as a material used in buildings since the beginning of kind of the modern era and building design, an evolution towards transparency, where for many years we saw simply glass in window applications and very small panes of glass to larger and larger uses of glass, such as glass in curtain wall or other large facade applications, to starting in the 21st century, largely all glass structures, in which we were really pushing glass to be not just an envelope, but an actual element of the structure itself. And as a material, it is, I would say, one of the newer materials that's being used in structural applications, and there has been a large amount of development in the last 20 to 30 years or so of glass as a structural material. And glass is something that, as most of you probably know, and it's why you're on this webinar, glass is not something, and glass design is not something that's typically taught in school. So part of the intention of this presentation is to fill in a gap that is left in many design education settings. So here is just an example, and I'll go through a few examples of what can be done with glass. If you're not familiar with glass beyond the facade application, this is a glass roof in Glasgow. And we start to see around the world, both in the United States and elsewhere, more and more applications of glass. So just when you're out and about in the world, be sure to watch out for glass in interesting applications. The more I travel and look around, the more frequently I see things that are quite of interest in terms of structural glass. So this is just an application where we have not just a glass and transparent skylight, but glass beam elements as well to provide complete transparency in this roof application. And here we see glass used in a stringer application. This is a stair at the Sealy headquarters in Dusseldorf, and there are other examples of similar applications here. The stringer is just a full height piece of glass with glass treads between two stringers. And so we go from kind of the roof application and simple beams to a person load bearing application. And then we start to see more and more building applications. This is a great example that I will show a few times in this presentation. This is an Apple store in Shanghai, and there are many examples of Apple stores around the world. Apple has really pushed glass fabrication and design in many ways. But here, one of the reasons I like this example is because you see glass used in almost every structural application. We have glass columns, we have glass beams supporting the roof, we have glass panels acting as our flat roof plane, and then we have curved glass elements that act as the exterior wall, the facade element. Here the columns are in fact the load-bearing elements. The curved glass wall elements are merely carrying themselves. And this is that stair continuing down into the actual Apple store. And so we see once we get below grade, there is a load-bearing glass wall that kind of continues down, but we see also the introduction of a glass stair that wraps around that wall. And so here we have curved glass, structural curved glass, in addition to structural glass treads.